For 3 weeks, the Donna Howell Show is going to do something a little bit different than normal. We are going to talk a little bit about the radical health journey that I have just begun. The things that we are going to be discussing on these episodes for 3 weeks in a row. First with Jamie, a health coach with Eden's Essentials, and then with a couple, the Umbriacos, Ralph and Lori, who are excellent experts in their field of medicine and general health. We are going to be talking about a number of different health-related issues. I challenge you at home, hear me say this very carefully, we will be discussing these things for entertainment and educational purposes only. Please, 2 things, do your own research, proceed with caution. Also, speak with your doctor before doing anything that you hear mentioned for these 3 weeks. Thank you. Making your home pantry your family health cabinet. What am I talking about? That sounds weird. I stole it from Ralph, and I can't wait for you to meet him. For a 3rd week in a row, we are going to be talking about health-related issues. Why? Because Donna Howell Show is becoming a health show? No, not necessarily. Listen, serving the Lord is a mind, soul, and body endeavor. And to put all 3 of those together definitely does involve taking care of our temples. Our body is the temple of the Holy Spirit. And if we ignore that, we ignore one of the ways we have been required to serve the Lord properly. So, Ralph, we're going to launch straight into it. Thank you so much for coming on my show. It's such an enormous honor. When my brother, Joe Horn of Skywatch TV, wrote his book, Time Bomb, you not only gave a lot of help and assistance in his health journey at that time, but you were also a really important voice in my life at that time. And this is like 10 books ago when my body was in limbo. So there's definitely been a lot that has happened since then. But you've been kind of an integral voice of health in our entire family since then. And you also contributed a chapter in the book of Time Bomb. So maybe before we launch, let everybody out there know you're not their doctor. You're not even pretending to be the audience's personal doctor in this moment, but you are a doctor. Why don't you share with people what's your specialty?
I'm a chiropractor, and one of the things that my wife and I specialize in is in educating people and helping people to understand what they can do to keep themselves from getting sick in the first place, and then if they are sick, what they can do to maybe start reversing it on their own. So we have a big hobby, my wife and I. We love to study. We like to go to seminars. We're always asking questions. We're always looking for new information. And today, it's getting harder to find, in our opinion, solid information. There's a lot of censorship going on. There's a lot of contradicting narratives. And so how do you get through and push through to the other side? How do you use the truth to set you free and help your body get strong? So that's one of the things that we specialize in mostly.
Yeah. And I love what you said earlier before we fired up the cameras. You mentioned, this isn't necessarily going to be anybody's step-by-step advice for what they should do. Everybody's different. Everybody's got their own situation going on. But you used a string of words, and I'm probably going to blow it here, but you said something like, this could be a way that we could give a lot of people information that they can turn around and look up on their own and research that could give them some low-cost ideas for how they can improve their health without ever having to go on a miracle pill or a fad diet. What would you consider like some of the top things that you would love to just get out there in public? If somebody just said, Ralph, go.
Well, if somebody had a pencil and paper and they are asking me a question and they said, listen, I don't feel good. I haven't felt good for a long time. Is there anything I could do at home, low cost, that I can start doing to make my body do what God designed it to do? And I would say, sure, there's actually quite a few things. Not in any particular order, but some of the things you'd want to look into for your overall health. One of them would be baking soda. Baking soda is an amazing substance. Baking soda comes in a couple different forms. You want to get baking soda that does not have any aluminum in it. So non-aluminum baking soda. And there's a couple of brands out there that don't have any aluminum.
Wow.
So let's say somebody has chronic kidney disease. Taking half a teaspoon of baking soda twice a day can either stop or halt the progression. Some cases, they reported a slight reversal. So if somebody has chronic kidney disease in standard Western medicine, all they can do is monitor you. They try and give you diuretics. They try and give you some other drugs to help mitigate the problem. But the progression is going to continue. Baking soda alkalizes the system. And an alkaline system is a superior system to an acid system because an alkaline system can carry out more oxygen throughout the body. It can help with the chemical delivery of substances like hormones throughout the body. Whereas acid systems, they lower your oxygen, they lower your transport capacity, and then you start suffering because your body cannot perform if it's not in a certain range to perform. So baking soda would be one of them. Start doing a little bit of research on what lemons can do for you. Lemons and limes. Now, lemons and limes, you can grow your own lemons or limes in your backyard. You can grow them in a windowsill, and they have dwarf trees, and they'll still give you the same benefit. But lemons, even though they're acidic in nature, the activity that it performs in your body is it makes your body alkaline. So some people, when it comes to alkaline acid balance, they look at the food as to whether or not it is alkaline or it is acid. That's not what you want to look for. You want to look for, does this food create an alkaline response in my body, or does it create an acid response? And we want to start getting away from foods that create acid responses, and we want to start adopting more foods that have alkaline responses. This is one way that your pantry can become your home healthcare cabinet. Is there such a thing called alkalosis where you can become too alkaline? The answer is yes. It's relatively rare. It's almost difficult to do in today's Western society because the stress levels, the EMF levels, the types of diets that we have, the sleep disruptions that we have, all of these will contribute to an acid system. Cancer cannot grow in an alkaline system. Cancer can only grow in an acid system. Anytime you have acid anywhere in the body, you're going to have inflammation. Anytime you have inflammation, you're going to have pain. So a lot of people are on painkillers. The painkillers are designed to shut off the pain signal to the brain, but it isn't doing anything for the underlying cause, which is going to be the acid-alkaline issue and or the inflammation issue. So you want to address the root cause. It's not that you can't take the painkiller to help you along your way. So I would look into that. Go ahead.
All right. I just wanted to ask a quick question. You mentioned that anybody can grow their own lemons and limes. And in my mind, I'm wondering, how about just getting like a store-bought lemon or lime juice in a bottle or in a squeezy tube? Are those not the same thing?
Good question. So a lot of people will just assume because it has a lemony flavor that it's going to have all the health benefits God created it to have. And it's not true. You need the whole food. You could take lemons, you can put them in a blender, and you can grind up the rind, the peel, and everything. For instance, with a lemon, there's a substance called modified citrus pectin. Modified citrus pectin is, let's say you have a grapefruit or a lemon or a lime, and you peel it and you see that white pith on the inside of the skin. That's citrus pectin. Citrus pectin will clean out the arteries of the body. So if you're having a problem with artery clogs, you can start to reverse that by taking citrus pectin. Now you could take modified citrus pectin in a powdered form, a pill form. You could actually eat the fruit and eat as much of the white rind as you possibly can stand. And over time, months or to a year, you can unclog your system. And it's just a natural food. Now, some people love lemons, and so I'll take lemons any way I can get them. But you can grind the lemons. If you don't want to eat the pith, you can just grind the whole lemon and turn it into a liquid, and then you can use that.
Or juice it, if you've got a juicer machine.
Yeah, the juicer machine will kick out the peel and stuff. Some people, what they'll do is actually they'll take the peel of all their citrus fruits, and you can go online. It's interesting how to make your own hydroxychloroquine, and you can make it using citrus peels, and you put them and you boil them, and extracts will come out, and it acts as a natural hydroxychloroquine. So there are people who go out there and they'll just drink this tea that they make. You can drink it hot or cold. It's just from something that normally people would throw away as scrap.
Right.
But Chinese medicine, they call the peel the chin pea, and what it does is it helps actually move fluids in the body. If you can use one word to describe how do we get healthy, it's movement and flow, either one. Flow is important, whether it's physical movement, blood flow, lymph flow, nerve flow. If you have stagnation, you're going to have a problem. And one way to look at this is if you were out hiking and you saw a natural brook and it was moving along pretty well across the rocks, you can be relatively sure that you can drink from that, and it's probably going to have some form of filtration.
Right.
But if you come across a stagnant pond and you move the reeds out of the way, all you see is just
skeeters and
just
algae
a lot of algae, a lot of nasty things that I don't want to go in there.
Yeah.
So your body is the same way. Think of your body as a fishbowl. You could have a clean fishbowl, and the cells could live like fish in the clean fishbowl and be healthy. Or you could have a dirty fishbowl, and then the cells, like a fish, could live in the dirty fishbowl, and that's less than excellent. Everything I'm telling you, each one has multiple benefits. You'll have to do a little bit of research to be able to find out what those are, And there are books on Amazon on each of these subjects. You can buy books on lemons and the benefits of lemons. You can buy books on the benefits of baking soda. They're not usually large tomes. They're usually quite small. You can read them and knock them out in an hour or two. Something else that's of huge benefit that people don't talk about is clay, C-L-A-Y. So there's a category known as earth clays. And there's a number of different kinds of earth clay. So you can have like zeolite clay, you could have bentonite clay, you could have kaolin clay.
Your wife mentioned this last week.
Yeah, there are others, yeah. So what clays do is, they're kind of interesting. Clays act as a poultice, so for the inside of the body. And clays have a charge to them. And as it turns out, many not so nice things in the body have a positive charge. And your body runs off of electrons. Your body is a battery, and in particular, it's a salt battery. So there are activities that can only take place if you have enough electrons to make that activity occur. And a lot of people, and something that's almost never talked about is electron deficiency syndrome. It's not like an official diagnosis in a CPT code book, which is a book that they use to bill for insurance. But if you are low in electrons, your body just can't push through, just like the ever-ready bunny. If its battery runs low, its electrons are low, it can't do what it needs to do. A lot of these clays have a negative charge. So if there are positive elements in your body, it will draw them, and it will connect to them and bind them. So clays act two ways, kind of importantly, and that is, it's a binder. So a lot of toxicity you don't want floating around in your system. You want something to go in there and at least start sponging it up.
Yeah.
But once it's sponged up, you need to get it out of the body. Well, the clays actually help you remove things out of the body. So it's a binder, but then it's also an eliminator. It'll take things out. And clays are inexpensive. Let's say it's the middle of the night, it's 2 a.m, their stomach hurts, they don't know why, what can they possibly do? Where they don't have to worry about contraindications for medications or anything else that they have. Well, you could take bentonite clay. Just put a tablespoon of bentonite clay in a glass of water, stir it up. Doesn't taste like anything. Just drink it down. And right away, you have food poisoning, bentonite clay. It's inexpensive. It should be in everybody's home healthcare cabinet. So a lot of people have a medicine cabinet. And our idea is we want to have a home healthcare cabinet. What are natural, low-cost things that won't do any harm and only offer benefit that you can do at home in case of an emergency or in case of discomfort? Make yourself more comfortable. So look into clays. Clays are another thing that you want. And there's many books you can find on clay and how to use clay beneficially for your health. A matter of fact, I will mention one thing. There's a particular noted healthcare speaker, and he does quite a bit of research. And I just heard him say a couple of weeks ago, he was doing something into activated charcoal. Charcoal would fit underneath that clay type of category. So what they do is they take charcoal and they heat it up super high, and it creates like a pumice stone effect when you look at it under a microscope. And that gives it all these nooks and crannies that act as cages to bind things to. He was mentioning that one of the best longevity secrets you can use and one of the best overall health benefit promoters that you can incorporate into your life would be regularly taking activated charcoal, which is completely inexpensive. It's very inexpensive. You take it on an empty stomach. So that's going to be an hour before you eat, or you can wait 2 hours after you eat. And, depending on how much you want to take, 4 to 6 a day, put it down. Now, what will happen is when you do evacuate, when you have a bowel movement, the bowel movement will look black because the charcoal itself is black. But there's nothing wrong. It's just that means you're being taken out of the body. And along with it, some of the other toxins you don't want as well. So clay would be a category. You mentioned before when we were talking about salt. So your body is actually an alkaline, it's a salt battery. And what it is salt is an alkaline substance. So of all the minerals, there are only 4 minerals that are alkaline in nature: salt, magnesium, potassium, and calcium. And what they do is they form an alkaline situation in the body, and that's very, very beneficial. But of these, one of the most crucial is going to be salt. And salt is so demonized at this point that people are actually staying away from salt. And they need salt to be healthy. So here's an example is anytime somebody goes into an emergency situation, unfortunately they might have been involved in a car wreck, or they might have suffered a high blood pressure episode, or they might have problems with emotional trauma and shock trauma. One of the first things that emergency rooms tend to do is they put you on a solution, a bag of solution.
Oh, yeah, the IV drip.
IV drip. And okay, so what they call it solution. Well, what's in it? Well, it's a saline solution.
Right.
Well, how much saline is in a bag? 9,000 milligrams of saline per bag. Sometimes they'll give people 2-3 bags. And so you're sitting here talking, that's a lot of salt. I thought salt was bad for you.
Right.
Well, the first thing that we need to do to help stabilize this patient. And yet, when they kick you out the door, everybody says stay away from salt. Now, let's quantify that. Do you want to stay away from bad salt? The answer is yes.
Sure,
and
absolutely.
are there bad salts? There are bad salts.
For sure.
You can take salt and you can use chemical extraction means or super high heat temperatures, and you can end up with residues in there, or you can end up with a composition where it's just mostly sodium and chloride. What you want is a salt that has other minerals in there to balance out the effects. So a good kind of salt would be a gray Celtic sea salt. That would probably have the broadest spectrum of other minerals available in its profile.
Gray, like the color?
The color is gray. So are there
Okay.
some good white salts out there? And the answer is, yeah, there's some good white salts out there. But sometimes it's difficult for somebody to know a good white salt from a regular bad white salt. So I tell people, try and go with a colored salt that tells you that it's raw, because if they were to wash it or bleach it, they'd rinse the color out of it or they'd ruin the composition. The color of the salt will tell you the dominant mineral. So if you see a lot of red, it's going to tell you there's iron in the salt. If you see other mineral colors, they're going to tell you that that's the dominant mineral. Not that it doesn't have other minerals.
There's probably a lot of people wondering about pink right now. That's
Yeah.
all I do is Redmond's Real.
Well, let's talk about pink salt. So that's a good subject. So is pink salt good for you? Yes, it's much better than regular commercial table salt. However, one of the things about pink salt is it's a mined salt. So they mine into the earth and they pull out from deposits these pink salts. Now, sometimes depending on where they mine it from, there could be other minerals in there you don't want. There could be cadmium, or there could be mercury, or there could be lead, or there could be arsenic. There are companies out there, Eden's Essentials would be one of them, where they test to make sure that there are no contaminants in the salt. What you want is what God wanted you to have, and you want to keep away from the things that might contaminate the activity of that salt. What salt does is it charges your battery. That's one of the things that it does. The other thing that salt does that's amazing is salt breaks up what are known as accumulations. So if you got a lot of phlegm, or you have a lot of, let's say, thick fluids, salt will start to break that up. Accumulations, even in terms of your body, you do salt rubs and you can get rid of, exfoliate and get rid of accumulations on the skin.
Right.
The other thing that would be interesting is that when you have salt, you give your body a chance to flush. It flushes the kidneys, it flushes and moves fluids throughout the body, it breaks up stagnation throughout the body. Now, how much salt should you take? Well, it's going to be different for everybody, but as a general rule, I tell my patients to take about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and put it in 16 ounces of water. And at that concentration, it won't taste very salty at all. And just do that once a day, and you can still salt your food above and beyond that. Now, if you're a real heavy water drinker, you're going to want to increase the salt. If you're the type of person who, let's say, you're super stressed out, like you're stressed out of your mind, I tell them take more salt. Why would I tell them to do that? Because the adrenal glands, in order to be able to counteract stress, it needs a raw material. And the raw material it's looking for is salt. Now, if you take the right kind of salt, you will strengthen your adrenal glands and give them support. If you take the wrong kind of salt, you'll actually stress the adrenal glands out even more. And the adrenal glands have a lot to do with your blood pressure. And so some people say, I can't have salt, my blood pressure's high. Well, you can't have bad salt.
Right, the iodized table salt you'd buy at a supermarket.
Right, but
Right.
take a look at the books that are available on salt out there now. And the most recent information is letting you know that we got it wrong. We were demonizing salt. We shouldn't have been demonizing all salts. We should have been talking about bad salt as being bad and good salt as being good. So one person to look into, he's really some great videos online, Dr. David Brownstein, Salt Your Way to Health. It's a book. It also is a video presentation. He's done many podcasts, but there are other authors who have taken up on this work, and they're promoting salt now as a basic need for creating health in your body. And so I think the salt message needs to get out there, and people need to do their own investigation and start experimenting with the salt. So salt would be another wonderful thing. Another super great thing that I think would help people is green, anything green. So there's a saying, you're not clean inside until you're green inside.
Okay.
And so what do I mean by green? Well, certainly it's going to be green, leafy fruits and vegetables, but it's also going to be, some people don't like the taste of those, or they can't eat that much. So you want dense nutrition. And one of the ways to do that is you can get organic green powders. Green makes your body alkaline, but the other thing that green does is supplies the kinds of plant chemicals that your body is looking for repair. You'll sleep better. It'll help with your hormonal profile. It'll help lower inflammation in the body. Just by taking a green drink every day or a green powder every day, you're not going to overload on this. It's just food. Your body knows what to do with food. I need green. Let's look for green. What can we do to get green? That's a great one to look into is, green things, green drinks. Mm-hmm. That would also include things like spirulina. It would include barley grass. It would include wheatgrass. And you can get those in juice, or you can get those in a powder. It would also include things like chlorella. Chlorella is an amazing substance. It'll clean up all kinds of toxicity out of the body.
Okay.
Now, you want to make sure when you get the chlorella, it's clean. And the reason being is if it's grown in an area where there's any toxicity in the environment, it'll start absorbing the toxicity.
It cancels itself out.
It works so good, it doesn't care where it's at. It's going to do its thing. You want to get clean chlorella, make sure that it's either organic or mention somehow that it's clean or grown in a controlled environment. And then what will happen is chlorella will act as a green substance, add green to your body. It'll alkalize your body. But chlorella also has something that's interesting in the plant kingdom. It has something called chlorella growth factor, which acts as a human growth factor, but in a non-toxic way. It's not going to hurt you. It's not like taking an artificial growth hormone. And people are afraid, it's going to make my cancer grow because it's a growth factor. No, it doesn't work that way. It only helps healthy tissues grow. So it'll detoxify the system, it'll green and alkalize the system, and it will give you plant growth factors that'll help your body kick into gear and repair itself.
And I want to throw this out there really quickly. Off camera just a moment ago, Brittany Jackson, who's still here for a couple more weeks, she just threw out here that Eden's Essentials actually carries a chlorella. Now, you've heard me say this before, folks, but anything that's on Eden's, Joe was, as Jamie said, OCD about the levels at which he maintains cleanliness and reliably clean ingredients in the food products and supplement products that they sell. I am certainly not going into a big sales pitch. I'm not trying to sell you anything, but this far into these health episodes and you're curious, edensessentials.com definitely does have a supplement line. Everything is reliably clean. And I definitely didn't want to interrupt what you were saying, but Brittany reminded me of that. And I thought, but there might be people sitting there going, I wish that Ralph would drop a brand. Okay, there's a brand drop for you in case you're interested.
And Joe and I spent a lot of time, before all these were formulated. Joe, whatever you do, make sure you're getting clean sources and that the manufacturing processes are retaining the benefits and not erasing the benefits. You can start off with good source material, but if you don't manufacture it properly, you can ruin its efficacy.
Wow. Okay, true. Yeah. Awesome.
So another interesting thing about green and certain things that are more concentrated, like chlorophyll or chlorella, is if people have a lot of bad breath, it deodorizes your breath. Or if you have a lot of smell coming, when you're sitting on the commode, you can start to eliminate that smell because they're binding agents and they're neutralizing agents. So there's a big benefit there for people who have body odor issues and they're just embarrassed by it and they're trying to cover it up. Well, covering it up and not dealing with the root cause. But something like long-term use of greens and particularly things like chlorella and chlorophyll, that will deodorize the body and it will clean it out.
I find it so funny that with all of this natural versus Western, it really shouldn't be versus. They should work together. They should, but they don't. I notice that sometimes when you're talking like with the IV bag, we hear all that, we think the Western is going to have the right way. So trust the Western people and they know what they're doing. And we see fancy lab coats with names embroidered on the pockets. And absolutely no disrespect to anybody in the Western medicine. I've said this 3 weeks in a row. Here it is a third week in a row. The Western medicine system exists for a reason. There are times it's excellent, times that it is good, times it is incredibly beneficial. I find it funny that we all tend to think that there's a better medicine system in the Western system, and everybody else is just kind of working with this natural thing, and sometimes it just isn't really very potent or whatever. But then you get somebody in a room like Ralph, and you realize the Western system, when it really counts, when a life needs to be saved, they often go straight to what is the natural thing, like the IV. That happened with me with activated charcoal, and I realized this was quite a while ago, but still, I was absolutely 100% poisoned by a pill on the floor I thought was a Red Hot, and I loved spicy Red Hots even as a baby. I mean, I was sucking on them even before I got out of diapers. And I was at my great-grandmother's house in Arizona, and I thought I found a Red Hot on the floor. And so I snuck it when nobody was looking, and I went straight to my mother, and I said, "Yucky candy, Mama." That's how old I was. I must have been 3. I don't know. I could barely speak English. "Yucky candy, Mama," is all I could say. And I spit it out in her hand, and she rushed over and was like, "What is this? What is this?" Turned out to be a very highly powered sleeping pill that would knock my grandmother out. And meaning no disrespect, my grandmother was probably stage 4 obesity, a very, very large woman. So one pill would knock her out, and that's what I did, and I'm running around in a diaper still. My mom rushes me to the hospital, and the first thing that they did was they pumped me completely radically full. And this is an emergency situation, obviously. This is not something that you would ever do just for some like naturopathic move. But this was literally a life and death scenario. They pumped me radically full of activated charcoal. And I remember that as I'm waking up and coming to, all I remembered was I had just eaten a Red Hot. And now I'm in a hospital. It looked like 64 ounces. It might have been much smaller, but all I know is that that's how big the cup looked to me at that size. And they were like, "Donna, you got to drink it. You got to drink it." And I just kept drinking it and vomiting it up and vomiting it up. And it just went on and on and on. And I would never forget walking away from that, because thinking activated charcoal or chalk was the word I kept wanting to say as a kid. But I mean, this is how they saved my life. This is what the Western medicine ER did to save my life from something, because they needed a binding agent. So there's very clearly examples of what they do in Western medicine that is at the very least mimicking what we know to be God's medicine that was put on the earth and given to us for a lot cheaper than you're going to pay oftentimes in the Western system. And again, I say in wrap up to this whole entire 3 weeks of conversation, please, your body is the temple of Holy Spirit. You are absolutely called upon by God to make that part of how you serve Him and part of how you maintain your obedience to Him. And please don't do what I did for as long as I did, where you are so busy serving the Lord that you don't do what the Lord is asking you to do with your body. Western versus natural, there's no right or wrong. I'm just telling you, please consider the natural medicines that God has placed on this earth. Consider that for your goals in your own health journey. Ralph, is there anything else that you would like to just tag on to the end of this for the people that are listening at home?
Yeah, what we've gone over has been a very, very, very short list. And one thing we would add, and it wasn't going in any particular order, but water is exceptionally important since your body's mostly made of water. Most people don't drink enough water. And people don't know that there are many things they do drink that actually dehydrate the body. One example would be 1 cup of coffee. If when you drink it, you have to drink 4 cups of water just to go back to a break even. So it's not that coffee's bad. There are some good coffees out there, and there's some health benefits to coffee. But you want to be made aware of alcohol, coffee, certain teas can actually have a dehydrating effect. Water is super important. If you don't have some kind of water filtration, you should look into water filtration, either for your whole house, or if you're in an apartment or can't afford a larger unit, at least a smaller unit. And you should start increasing the amount of water that you can take in on a day. I will say this, we talked about lemons earlier. Do an experiment, take 2 glasses of water, filtered water, 1 glass put lemon juice in it, the other glass just regular. Drink the regular glass first, then wait a minute and drink the lemon water. You'll find the lemon water goes down so much easier because the lemon structures the water in such a way that it becomes more usable for the body. And that has a bigger flushing effect and a better hydration effect.
I can't begin to thank you and your wife enough. This is a very, very high honor to have the Umbriacos on the show and to be able to just talk about some natural ways to improve health. This is probably the beginning of the last time I'm going to have to start a health journey because I don't see any restarts coming. I'm getting too old to do the thing where I continue to let myself go. Folks at home, if there's any part of these 3 weeks that have inspired you, please listen to the Holy Spirit and how he is guiding you in your life. Most definitely don't just take any random piece of advice and just launch with it. Check with your doctor, do your own research, be responsible for the decisions that you make for your own body, but definitely listen to the Holy Spirit and let him guide you. Thank you so much for joining us for these 3 weeks on health on the Donna Howell Show. We'll be back soon to talk more theology and the Bible. Thank you so much for bearing with me for these 3 weeks. God bless.